I would argue the reason black men marry white women is because they wish they were white themselves. And having the white man's prize, his queen, is a psychological symbol to myself that I am equal to him.
We're back with Dr. Umar Johnson. In that particular statement, the family also addressed this here. You talked about taking over the buildings or the land of a black school that was shut down.
Yes, sir.
HBCU
St. Paul's College.
And you were raising money for it. First of all, how much money has been raised, and what's the status of that project?
Well, St. Paul's has been sold. Approximately 3 to 5 months ago, I was told by the auction company in charge of the sale that it was been sold to a developer.
So how much money was raised? What the people gave? All kinds of people gave. How much was raised, and what's the status of that?
$700,000, and the status is we're still looking for a school, and the status is my start date for FDMG will be 8/21/18, or if at all, it may be delayed to 8/21/19, which is the anniversary of the Nat Turner War.
When you say looking for a school, why not start a charter school? I mean, you can start a school.
Because charter schools are owned by the state, and I'm a Pan-Africanist. I believe what is to be done for black people must be done by black people. Why do I want a charter school?
So you want a private school?
Exactly, independent school.
Lauren.
So the question of interracial marriage,
Yes,
I mean,
ma'am.
come on, man. You're too smart for this. We got 43.
I'm too smart for what?
We got 43 million black people in this country.
And
we
that
got
means
over
what?
190 million white people. You're going to sit here and say that if
And you
a
got
black
half the
person,
black
a white
women.
person get married, a black person, a white person get married, one can't understand the other person's struggle. You've seen
It's not
you've
about
seen Tim Wise, right?
individualism.
You've seen
It's
Reverend
about
Wallace. You've
systematic
seen white people who
empowerment.
understand racism very well.
That doesn't mean they're going to do anything about it.
The other thing that is obviously true is they understand racism when you see things like the murder of Medgar Evers, like the murder of Martin Luther King. They understand racism just
And what
fine.
did they do about it?
They understand us gaining just fine, and that's why murder happened.
Based on what?
So the idea that somehow a white person can't understand our struggle,
I
no
could
way.
care less what they understand. I'm
No
asking
way.
you, what have they done systematically
He already
to
told you
improve
that.
the opportunities
He
of white
already
folks?
told you
He
that.
did not tell
Oh,
me
yes,
that.
you did tell
He
tell
did
you
not
that.
tell me that.
You're going to tell me that guys like Tim Wise and Reverend Wallace don't understand
What
race
about
in
Tim
America?
Wise?
They don't understand race
He
in America?
articulates
They don't
racism,
so
but
all-
what has he done to
There are no white
systematically
people that understand race in
eliminate it?
America.
There's not
no
a
white
white
people.
person
There's
in
no white
America.
people that understand race in America.
There's not a white person.
Them going to Eugene.
There's not a white person in America who has ever worked to systematically eliminate the white privilege that they benefit from vis-a-vis your oppression.
You're lying. You know
Eugene,
190 million people in America.
Eugene.
We're not going to go there. We're not. I haven't
called me a liar, and you're cool.
Well, it's a fact that
Watch
you're
how
lying.
you talk
It's
to
a
me,
fact
or
that
watch
you're
how I
lying.
talk
It's
to
a
you.
fact that you're
I
lying.
understand you.
To say that.
No, everybody, 1 second. Several things I don't allow. I don't allow the N-word. I don't allow coon. We can talk to one another and disagree, but I do not use racial epithets against
And
black
that's
people.
fine, but he called me a liar.
No.
So the language needs to be watched on both
Racial
sides.
epithets will not be used on this show
And that's fine.
by anybody.
But how we talk to each other needs
you
to
can
be
say
up
whatever
there.
you want, but no racial epithets will be used on this show about black people to black people. Eugene, your question.
So, from your paradigm, from your perspective, Civil Rights Act isn't an act of white folk stepping up on behalf of black folk. Current criminal justice reform legislation moving isn't a current act of white folk stepping up on behalf of black folk. Folk that funded the civil rights movement in the 50s and 60s isn't an act of white folks stepping up on behalf of black folk. I'm sorry, as an American, because I define myself as an American, an African American.
I'm sure you do.
I live in a country that moves forward together. And I say that as a Republican. We move forward together. Yes, we have individual struggle. Yes, we have struggles.
I'm not talking
yes, we
about
have. Yes, no. Yes, we
We're
have.
talking
we
about
have
systematic
we have
bias,
systematic
disproportionality.
Finish
Indiscriminate.
it 15 seconds. Then answer.
We have systematic struggles, and together as a country, moving forward to defeat those struggles.
Really? So, based on what you said, I want you to give me examples of white folk, not individuals, but systematically. Excuse me.
Why can't they be
Excuse
individuals?
me.
1 second.
I know you can't wait to
1 second
defend them,
answer.
but let me
1
finish.
second answer.
Can I finish?
Go.
Okay, I'm going. Okay? You cannot name anything systematically done ever in this country by white people to equal the playing field for black folks.
The Civil Rights Act, Congress literally sits behind us. The Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act.
Are you
Both
aware?
of them.
Are you aware?
Hey, can I
Both of them.
White people are proud of you, son.
Scott Bolden.
Quick. I think the terminology and the narrative being used is a little misleading, not from you, but from this dialogue right here.
Okay.
You know, it's one thing to sympathize with the struggle. It's another one to empathize with the struggle. Very different. When you talk about marriage being a political choice, and that one of the arguments that you made that I tend to agree with is that if you don't marry a black woman, then she can never support and comfort and value your day-to-day struggle as a black man. That being said, I do think that the level of the rhetoric that you use in regard to your Pan-Africanism is difficult for many of us, quote, in the mainstream to get our arms around. But this issue about black men and white women in the civil rights struggle is not a new discussion. My mother was a civil rights activist in Chicago, and she would often complain privately that, one, you can't sleep white and talk black, if you will. And that's always been in the American struggle, African-American struggle with ourselves.
Yes, sir.
The other thing is that we struggle with our own psychology about self-love and otherwise. And if we get our arms around that, that does make sense.
Okay.
But you would have to say that you know 190 million people.
But you're being too
one second.
You would have to claim
Answer,
that.
one
Individuals
second.
don't
Answer
matter.
the question.
You'd have to claim
No,
that.
go ahead and respond. Go ahead.
And I agree with my brother's
Scott.
comments. Brother Scott. He brought up the Civil Rights Bill. But what he did not talk about in relation to the Civil Rights Bill is there were two words included in that bill that ultimately served to take away from black people what that bill was intended to deliver. They added gender and they added sexual orientation. And as a result of that, white women and homosexuals have been able to strip black America from the intended gains of the Civil Rights Act. So there was still racism in that bill if you will study that history.
But Umar, your question was, has anyone black ever systematically done, I mean, has anyone white ever systematically done anything?
Systematically. White America.
So LBJ would be the answer for that,
No,
because that's the government.
No, I don't think you heard the
question.
question.
That's a systematic move.
No, you didn't hear the question. No, you did not. No,
Yeah,
you didn't.
Yeah,
You're so quick to defend white folks that you're not listening.
No, I'm not trying to
I
defend
literally
white
have
folks.
45 seconds, so restate the question and give an answer. I got 45
All right,
seconds.
let's get an answer.
The question was, what has white America done?
Right.
Not individuals. Systematically, you
Why
won't
not
even let me
individuals?
finish.
Yeah, because
You're that in love with white folks, you won't even let me finish.
Point on everything.
Finish
Got it out
literally
3 times.
20
Got it
seconds.
out 3 times.
There is no bigger
Go.
system than the
20
US.
seconds, I'll finish.
The US
And in 20
government is
seconds, I would
fixing-
say that the panel that you have here, who are extremely intelligent, do not represent the everyday black man and woman struggles, and then because of that, they can articulate.
And you represent 43 million people in this country? I don't think so.
I appreciate it. Thanks so
I don't
much.
think
Don't
you
love
We
it.
come
represent
back.
43 million
Boxing, fitness, fit, live, win. Next, News 1 Now, TV 1.